This is episode 11 of Triple Cross Cinema, the podcast. I'm Whooper, and here's Mario.
Hello, everyone.
I can't remember exactly how long it's been since we've done an episode, maybe a month or something. But I do remember that in the previous episode we talked about kind of like some classic Hollywood films, like the golden era, some might call it.
Yep.
And we decided to do 2 Hollywood episodes back to back because this time we're talking about musicals, as you can see from the title and the thumbnail.
Yep.
3 films. They are The Wizard of Oz from 1939, and I believe that both of the other films are from 1964. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
And they're Mary Poppins and My Fair Lady.
Mm-hmm.
As for the selection of these 3, it was mostly left up to Mario, so don't ask me why there's no Singing in the Rain or whatever else your favorite musicals are. I mean, I'm so ignorant of the history of musicals that I couldn't, spitball a list of like 3 or 4 more that could have been selected.
Yeah. Well, when we were selecting this, when we were watching this movie, I actually was thinking of why didn't I pick Singing in the Rain? But because Mary Poppins and My Fair Lady is kind of interchangeable in the way that they are in the same year, but it's something that we can talk about as well.
Well, you don't get as broad a mix of eras, I guess,
Yep.
if you exclude any movies from the Wizard of Oz being in the late 30s is, kind of qualifies it as maybe filling in that 40 spot. But if you don't have anything from the 50s, then I guess there's not as much a diversity in terms of the chronology of Hollywood musicals.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins are very similar in terms of, I mean, I just don't think they're very similar at all.
Yeah. But the production are kind of interchangeable in the way that the actress from Mary Poppins, what's her name?
Adams? Is that?
Julie Andrews.
Andrews, that's right.
Yeah, she was in a play of My Fair Lady, and she was expected to play the lead role, but they went for Hepburn instead. So that's why she took Mary Poppins, and she won an Oscar for Mary Poppins.
Huh.
Yeah. So
that she assumed, and everyone assumed, I guess, that she would play the role in My Fair Lady, and she only ended up in this other film because she didn't get it.
Yeah, that's right. And My Fair Lady, she was in a play that played for that was really popular at the time. And played for I would say 4-5 years, and she was a lead role of that. Huh. And when it come to the movies, they actually decided to pick up bigger names, and
right.
and that was happened. So I would say it would be interesting to see Julie Andrews playing My Fair Lady, because I think she would be more perfect to that role. But that's something we can talk about when this comes to My Fair Lady.
Right. Okay, well, should we talk about them chronologically? We were just talking about the chronology of musicals. I guess it would be fitting to start with the earliest one. Yep. And perhaps the most famous. Do you think? I don't know. The Wizard of Oz seems like it might be the most famous musical film ever made.
I would say they are on the same level. The Wizard of Oz and Mary Poppins are certainly very popular. I would say the Wizard of Oz is more popular considered how it plays on DVDs, on TV, and it's remained popular ever since.
Ever since what? Ever since the advent of DVDs?
the TVs, ever since it's played on TVs. I think back in 1950s.
So did it enjoy a renaissance?
Yep.
Like a return to popularity and a return to the public eye?
Yep. What was the first time that you watched The Wizard of Oz? Wasn't that on TV?
I have never. I don't think I had ever seen the full film before this point, but I'd seen snippets of it because I have an uncle who's really into musicals, and he probably sat me down in front of it when I was a kid, and I have some memories of having seen the film.
Yeah.
Mostly the Munchkins. I remember the Munchkins.
Oh. Right. I only remember the Wicked Witch
The Wicked Witch of
and
the West.
yep, the Wicked Witch of the West and the lion. I don't know why I remember the lion.
Well, he kind of hams it up. Like the lion chews the scenery the most aggressively out of any of Dorothy's three friends, I think,
Yep.
because he has that laugh, and the facial expression that he has to maintain in order to seem sort of feline and I guess lionish without the courage part is like his face is screwed up for the entire film. You know, even though most of his face is behind a mask, it's only his eyes and his mouth and his jaw, I think, that are that you can see beneath it or popping out from underneath it. Other than that, he's like a lion through and through. In fact, all three, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion, I feel like the costumes are really good. Obviously, they don't reach this sort of, I don't know if immersion or realism are the right words, but they don't have the look that could be achieved with today's technology. They've got a charm to them.
Yeah, I do feel that the whole thing, you cannot replicate it in today's. Like the whole Technicolors, the color looks just so magical, and the whole set of the yellow, the yellow brick road, or like the tree that look fake, but like charming in this old way. It's just something that I don't think that you can see in today's movies anymore.
Yeah, kind of like anime that are animated on cell. There's sort of a comfort to being able to detect that something was made by people.
Yep.
And that comfort, even like simultaneously, even as you're identifying that it's not real and that it's a production, that helps you accept it for what it is. It's kind of paradoxical. I don't know how to describe it, but it works with physical productions, but not in terms of the uncanny valley with digital ones. So there is an advantage that older films, older animations, I would say it probably extends even beyond visual media, and it for just older stuff in general, songs where you can hear the tape for things that were made with like analog recordings, and even beyond art. I don't know. I think there's just something in general, things that were created by human hands, we can identify them. There's like a sort of soul that goes into the creation of anything at all that we can pick up on. That's part of what makes us special as human beings.
Yeah, that's right. And
that applies to this film too.
That's right. And the result also, like I would say that I watched this one like multiple times already, and even like to this rewatch, like something like when it transformed from black and white to the color, it just like totally blew me out.
Yeah, it really does look great.
It is. So
we were talking about Technicolor when we discussed Gone with the Wind last month, and you mentioned that it was the same director who handled both, and they're both in Technicolor, so that was a specialty of his or whatever team he was working with, perhaps that crossed over between these two films, and it really, like the effect in Gone with the Wind is great because everything does look kind of painterly. And it allows the film to more like directly communicate characters' emotions in some scenes, because the color isn't quite natural. I assume that they can manipulate it or shape it in some way. And in this film, I mean, the fact that, as you mentioned, it begins in black and white, or it's kind of like sepia toned. At least it was in my version. Maybe there are different versions of the film, but that when the color shows up as she's stepping through the doorway, I guess, of her house, that's just been blown into Oz. It's an effect like you really don't get in too many movies at all.
That's right. And
is it Oz, the name of the land as a whole that they go to?
It is Oz. Yeah, it is Oz. And yeah, and the way that she said that, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah. Watching these three films, there were a lot of lines and songs and moments and things that you know, I recognized immediately, even though I hadn't
Yep.
seen all of these films. I'd seen parts of The Wizard of Oz,
Yep.
and I think I saw Mary Poppins like when in music class in elementary school, maybe when I had a substitute teacher, they just put on this movie.
That's a
They
good way to
didn't
do
really
it.
want to teach a lesson about the recorder, or perhaps they didn't know how to play it, so they were just like movie time. So I'd seen some of Mary Poppins too, I think.
Yep.
But even having seen only one of these films and part of another, my recollections of them were, hazy, and I hadn't seen them all, but I still, there were so many quotes and things that I recognized right away just because they're ubiquitous.
Yep. Yep.
People will make reference to them. I'm sure many, many thousands and tens of thousands of people make reference to them every day without having seen the movies.
Yep. And yeah, and I just found that this time watching the Wizard of Oz, like everything just looked um so glittering, just so brightened, like it just I just feel like, like I'm watching part of my childhood again. That's what I feel.
I'm sure many people do, since so many people, it's such a popular children's movie.
Yep.
And it is very bright. It's very brightly lit as
Yeah,
a
it
whole.
is.
Once you enter into Oz, the only portion of the film from then on that is that's dimly lit is the invasion of the witch's castle. That scene where
Where Dorothy was
she's kidnapped, right? She's up locked in the tower, and the hourglass is like the blood colored sand is draining through it, and her three friends have to come and rescue her, along with Toto's help, of course.
Yep.
It's that, because that's when things are most grim, like Dorothy's fate is she's most in peril. So it's lit a little bit darkly. But apart from that, it's all shiny.
That's right.
I guess there's also the scene of the hallway when the characters are walking to meet the wizard.
Yep.
That's a little bit. I mean, the arches overhead are kind of green, but as a whole, I'd say that scene is pretty darkly lit because he's a threatening character.
Yep. But yeah, I think they play it for laugh as well. The way that that the lion just like keep backing up, like he just too scared that he don't want to beat the Wizard on it anymore.
Yeah, well, they're all afraid, but he in particular having no courage, or thinking that he has no courage, because that's like the crux of the film, is that all these shortcomings that the characters perceive in themselves, they really just need to believe. Of course, that's what you learn, but he is a pretty cowardly character, even though, I think what you can learn from the film is that he had courage inside of him all along. He's still cowardly enough that he's the one character who, in that scene, like runs out of the room and dives through the wall. Which is pretty amusing. I can't even remember what sort of material it was that like broke or shattered when he did that, but I would have taken some guts. Not on the lion's part, of course, but the person in the costume.
I think it's just the sound effect. Oh, and speaking of that, I don't think that they we can sort of tell that it's a lip sync, because I feel that sometimes the sound doesn't match up with the voice when they're singing. Or is that just me?
In all three of these films, the songs are overdubbed.
I think My Fair Lady is kind of like singing on spot, but not really sure of that.
Well, I was just watching it like minutes before we started recording, because I'm a big procrastinator, and you can hear that the audio is sourced differently when the characters start to sing. And in the case of Henry Higgins, like in My Fair Lady, he doesn't do a lot of actual like melodic singing. He does a lot of talk singing.
Yep.
You know, he kind of talks like this, in rhythm with the music, but he isn't actually singing any notes. His voice goes up and down. His face may make a frown, but you know, he's not he's not really singing.
It's actually impressive.
But you can hear when he does that. There's a different audio source from when he's talking in like natural dialogue.
I just remember that Hepburn didn't actually do her own singing, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. I mean,
Yep.
as I was watching the film, I was blown away by
The voice.
whoever, yeah, by her voice. I was like, there is no way Audrey Hepburn is that beautiful and that talented. That's just that would be like God just spitting on everyone else.
Yeah. Well, Julie Andrews, I actually think that she does all the singings for Mary Poppins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well,
well, you told me before we started recording that she was actually on. I don't know if she was on Broadway or not, but she played Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady on stage.
Yeah, that's right. She did her own singing as well on My Fair Lady.
Well, yeah. I mean, anybody lip syncing on Broadway, that would be a massive, or whatever. I just say Broadway because I'm silly American, and that's what I think when I think of theater.
Yep. And watching the Wizard of Oz now, like I did a few days ago, I just feel that, you know, like the Kansas version, the black and white segment, I do feel that Dorothy overacts very much.
Are you now? You just mentioned the black and white segment. Are you talking specifically about that portion of the film, or in general?
Oh, that portion of the film, like in the beginning, when like the whole thing that Dorothy acts, you know, like she decided to run away because she's afraid that someone gonna take Toto away from her.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not so much Judy Garland's performance as it is like the way her character is written.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, she decides to run away because, well, I mean, I don't know. This is a children's film, and I think that even though I don't know how old Judy Garland was when she made this movie, I assume
17.
that. What's that?
Sorry, 17.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would have assumed that she was in her like early to mid 20s because she has her voice is so commanding.
Wow.
You know, it's so she has so much power.
All right. She was 17 at the time, 16, 17, and she already was considered as, you know, like overage for this role.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I this is something that I read, but apparently behind the scenes she was like harassed by the cast.
What do you mean by the cast? By the entirety of the cast?
Like by some of the cast, especially the Munchkin.
The who? The Munchkins?
She was groped by them, I think.
What?
Yeah. It just like some really fuck up.
Why did you tell me that? I don't want to know that. I mean, there are so many of them in those Munchkin scenes. Now I'm. Ew.
All right. Yep. And
gross. Well, you were talking about the fact that like her character, you know, kind of overreacts to the situation of Toto being taken away from her.
Yep.
I mean, this is a children's movie, and even though, you know, Judy Garland, as you say, may have been too old, quote unquote, for the part.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's, I don't know, like a child who is living in the middle of nowhere basically and has a dog for company and pretty much nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as though we see that she has any friends at all. Her friends are like the farm hands who live on her. Are they aunt and uncle or grandma and Auntie M?
I don't think so. I think they just workers.
Yeah, they're workers, but they're like her only friends, basically. You know how at the very end of the film, she's just woken up and she's in bed and everyone's around her.
Yep.
And she's like, "I love you all," you know.
Yep. There is nothing like home.
Yeah, but she says to everybody like, "I love you all." You know, where are her friends at school? She may not even go to school.
Yeah. Now that we think about it.
She's in bumfuck Kansas. Like, she may
Yeah.
only have that dog for company, and if that dog is taken away, that's her. You know, that may be her whole world.
Yeah.
Um, is it a little, kind of crazy that the plot of the film is kicked off by her dog biting someone and
Yeah.
there's the threat of
And
her dog being taken away? Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, the film so quickly goes to such an outlandish and colorful and like wondrous place that how you get there isn't really of too much consequence, I don't think.
that's right. And yeah, to the point, I don't even think that Miss Gouge is that evil. You know, she behaved totally perfectly. You know, like appropriate at the time.
I definitely don't agree.
No agree. All
You
right.
can't take a kid's dog away.
In a
It
kid
simply
movies.
isn't done.
All right.
You just let that dog bite you, and you just keep on going on with your life.
And yeah, even like before we get into the arts, I feel that some of the sequence are really impressive. The tornado scenes, for example, it's it looks so epic.
Yeah, kind of does. I think part of that is a result of the fact that the tornado is shot from so far away. Like
Right.
it approaches from such a great distance.
Yep.
And
Yep.
only after we get a few shots of that and of the characters running and like getting into the bunker,
Yep.
and Dorothy, being late because she was out running away with Toto. She's the only
Oh,
one who. What's that?
yeah, that's something I want to mention as well because it's great to see the shelter because do you have shelter at your homes?
No
Uh,
way.
we
Me?
we don't we don't have it here in Australia anymore. Like we don't have like this kind of shelter.
Nobody
And
does.
it really, I still see it in some of the horror movies, American horror movies.
I mean, don't you think that's just basically part of the plot for all the characters
Yeah,
to get down into the bunker?
maybe.
It's not like
Right.
anyone has stuff like that built on their property, at least not anymore. I think that was more common during, you know,
The
the world
30s.
wars,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and that era is long over. I mean, it's not as though international conflict has ceased since then. We got Russia and Ukraine duking it out right now.
yeah.
But
And China, Taiwan, I think they're gonna happen soon.
I've been reading a little bit about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would really, really like it if we didn't have two, unjust wars of
yep,
aggression
yep.
happening at the same time. But
That's true.
that's not up to me.
Yep, yep.
Not up to anyone, really.
It's not up to Dorothy and Toto either. So
Yeah, they get sucked away to a magical place, or perhaps it was all a dream,
yeah.
and they don't get to choose where they go. So the reason I was asking about whether it was called Oz is because, like, is that the name of the continent as a whole? Because that's the name of the city where the Wizard of Oz lives, but where she actually ends up at first is called Munchkin Land.
Right. Yep. And they have like all sort of different species because I remember they like each of the gang come up to her and say like we are from like we are from
We represent the Lollipop Guild.
yeah that
Yeah.
yes.
See, that's the thing. When I was
Cool.
talking about the fact that I remember the Munchkins from my childhood, I specifically remember the phrasing of "We represent the Lollipop Guild," like that very specific little phrase there. I remember, and I have remembered for almost my whole life. Of course, now I know that of the three dudes who sang that, one of them probably groped Judy Garland. So that now I can carry that with me to my grave.
There's always some twist behind behind it. So
That's true. Any movie that was ever made, there's always going to be stories that no one ever knows except the people who were there.
and you know what? I think this is like one of Lynch favorite films. So like imagine in like I can understand his style. Like he always hey, I have that sort of, like something going on behind the perfect settings, and
Hmm.
like the dark the dark behind it. So I would say like I understand why The Wizard of Oz is like one of his favorite movies ever.
Huh. It's
Yep,
kind of interesting. I mean, there is a question of whether it's all a dream or not, which he would be
yep,
attracted to.
yep. Right, that's right.
Do you think it was all a dream?
It doesn't matter, It can we
What a
can take
very
it either
Lynchian
way.
response.
That's right. But yeah, either it's a dream or not. Like she come to term with like not running away from home, and like she have a fantastic journey. Either it's true or not doesn't really matter.
Well, if it's so fantastic, why does she want to go home? If
Um,
this place, if Munchkin Land and Oz and this whole capital, this whole continent, this whole whatever,
yep.
if
She
it's really
doesn't
such a fantastic place, why does she want to go home? Why is there no place like home? Why not stay?
because she just doesn't feel like home. I think.
Well, sure, but yeah, granted, it doesn't feel like home, but why is there no place like home? Why is it so important? Why is home so important?
Yeah, you don't see. Yeah, I don't think she see herself living with these people over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that
that yeah,
that's a good
it's
question.
frightening. It's frightening there. Although both wicked witches are now dead,
Yeah, that's
um,
true.
she still wants to go home. And of course, I understand that that's the one of the themes of the film, and that people, throughout time and history have always felt attached to the places where they come from. And that's just like a natural thing. I just wonder, like
Mhm.
if she does, like, just by arriving in Munchkinland, she takes out one of the two greatest threats to this entire universe. Um, if indeed it isn't a dream, uh, and then she beats the second witch, and now there's
Yep.
only good witches left, and cool, uh, like Oz people. I don't know what their race is exactly, or what they're
Yep.
supposed to be called, and Munchkins and lions and Tin Men and such. Why? I mean, I guess there's still trees that throw their apples at you. That's not fun. Got to go home. You don't want to live in a place where the apple trees don't let you just eat their apples.
I forget we are not in Kansas.
Right. Yeah,
That's a
there is
good
kind of a
one.
callback to the original "We're not in Kansas
Yep.
anymore" line, which I didn't know about or didn't remember, I guess, having seen only part of the film.
Yep. Yep.
So, which of Dorothy's three friends are your, like, who's your favorite?
I would say I love them all the same because
Boo!
they offer different like aspect. I just agree with you that the design I really good for the three. The
Yeah,
Tin Man and the Scarecrow look totally different from each other.
I really do
It,
like the way that the Tin Man's suit kind of was altered throughout the course of the film. You know how
yeah,
he was really rusty at first, and then they oiled
right.
him, and
Yep, yep,
then
yep,
later on, when everyone kind of got, glammed up before going and having an audience with the wizard,
yep.
he like laid down on a table and sat underneath that spinning
Oh, right.
brush. You
Yep,
know,
yep,
that
yep,
was
yep,
really the whole film was extremely inventive.
yep,
Just the concept of him like being polished in that way, as she's gonna put on a nice dress,
yep,
and, like, take a bath and wash her face and whatever else, get her hair done. But they had to think of ways that the other characters could all get, like, primped and proper.
yep,
And I just really like that specific one for the Tin Man. But I think
yep.
of the three, my favorite is the Scarecrow.
Right.
There's a
Because
real, like, physicality to their performance,
yep,
because the guy's legs are constantly kind of like buckling and folding as he's walking,
yep,
because he doesn't have any, like, muscle fibers or any tendons or sinews or anything. It's his
yep,
knees. He doesn't even have knees,
yep,
really.
yep.
So
So
the
how?
fact that so much attention to detail was paid to the way that he walks really impressed me.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And how do you take on the review of the Wizard of Oz?
Oh, the reveal that he's just a human being
Yep.
and a
He come
Kansas
from
native.
Kansas. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And in fact, he's the same actor as, all the principal characters are
Yep.
versions of people from the real world. He's the guy who has that little, what is it, like a truck or a.
Yeah. I remember that.
He's
It's
the
it's
fortune
like
teller, I guess.
fortune teller. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like the reveal of the Wizard of Oz. I like that the film is what I especially like about it, because obviously he's a hack, and I think that given that this film was probably, I mean, it was adapted from children's books, right?
Hmm.
But it was written, it was adapted for the screen. It was written by an adult, and it was adapted for the screen by adults.
Yep.
And you got to figure that a character like the Wizard of Oz, who's viewed, who's worshipped by commoners and viewed as all powerful and thought to be magical, the fact that he ends up being a fraud and a hack is probably, there's some sort of comment being made here about who knows what, like
Right.
organized religion or politics, that people in positions of power are not necessarily who they seem. But what I really like about the Wizard of Oz's character is that even after that reveal, he still like kind of comes alongside the characters and at least attempts to encourage them by giving them the things that they wished for.
Yep. Well,
even though they don't need those things, really, he
Yeah.
still gets to be kind of a friendly presence, or at least a neutral one.
Yeah, that's one thing that popped up to me when I watch him. Like giving the present for the trees. Is that I just feel that he's so much American. Pardon, I just don't mean it in a bad way.
How so?
But all the things that he gave them are just art recognition. Like in recognition, so they have like the I think the Tin Man get the get that thing, get that
He wanted a heart, right? He gets like a
Yeah.
little fake heart on a string of what looks like garlic or something. I don't know what it was exactly.
and they say courage. Oh, that's a lion. The lion have like the claw that say courage or something.
Yeah.
And the scarecrow got like the whole certificate.
Yeah, he got a
So-
degree from like the School of
Degree.
Thinkology or something.
Yeah, so it just like all of these are like recognition. All of these are like to recognize you of something, and
But
I
they don't
thought-
actually have any value in and of themselves.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That doesn't really fix their problem. It just fix their self-esteem.
Right. Well, I think that plays into one of the messages of the film is that if you
You have to
feel
judge
as though
yourself.
well, basically, well, it's not really self-reliance that the film is preaching, although maybe it is. But at least like
Maybe, yeah.
at the most basic level, it's kind of just like what you need is already inside of you. You just have to dig down for it and search for it. Like for example, the Scarecrow comes up with when they're infiltrating the castle, the Scarecrow is the one who's coming up with the plans.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who like cuts the cable so that the chandelier falls down and lands on the witch's henchman.
Yep.
And he's the one who's like, this way, and who guides them like in and out. I mean, Toto's the one who gets them in the first place. But it's this in those scenes, the film demonstrates that the Scarecrow does in fact already have brains.
Yep.
And the lion already has courage. We see that at a crucial moment in the film too. And the Tin Man having a heart, I think there's a moment in the film, somewhere in the film, where he's like the most emotional character. I should have taken better notes. I don't remember exactly what that was. But yeah, all the characters already have what they need. They don't need that recognition from the wizard. It's interesting that you say that that's a very American. Is that like your perception of?
Sorry, I just feel.
I'm not offended at all. I'm interested.
Yeah. That's the way that I feel. Like or maybe like Western thinking as well, because like many of us just want to get recognized, just want to get a degree without like getting a degree to get a good job, instead of like trying to learn something,
Yeah.
like actually learning something. So yeah, I have a mixed feeling about that.
Well, I mean, it's Oz is obviously, the film's not trying to teach kids that recognition is what they ought to strive for,
Yeah,
because Oz is, a liar and a cheat and just a regular schmuck from Kansas.
yeah,
So it's not as though this is like all the characters getting those little trinkets from the wizard. It's not like that's their Star Wars moment where there's a big ceremony at the end and they all get medals. It's got a very different tone to it.
yeah. But yeah, I think I would be interested to see like what behind these thinking. Like why they pick the lion, the Tin Man, and the scarecrow as the side character, for example. I want to know the reason behind that. I doubted that there have to be a reason why, but I'm still interested to see like what the thought process was.
Well, for that you would probably have to look into the author of the
Yeah,
book or
yeah,
books,
yeah,
rather than the film.
yeah,
I don't know. I would guess that. Well, the scarecrow, obviously he's a fake person, so he wouldn't have a brain.
yeah,
The Tin Man, a hollow man, because when you knock on him, you hear
yeah,
the ringing because there's nothing
yeah,
inside of him, so he wouldn't have a heart, nothing in his chest. But
yeah,
the lion, you would figure it makes sense that a scarecrow wouldn't have a brain. It makes sense that the Tin Man wouldn't have a heart. It
yeah,
doesn't make sense that a lion would be cowardly.
yeah,
So that is
yeah.
kind of an interesting, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, discrepancy or contradiction. I don't know what you would want to call it.
Yeah.
Um,
It just doesn't really fit any pattern for me.
Well, I think that might be part of the appeal of it.
Yep,
If things are too cut and dry or too easily broken down or analyzed,
yep,
they're less likely to be timeless
yep, yep. I agree
because
with that.
historians and theoreticians and critics and even audiences will watch the film, have it kind of figured out, and then that'll be that, and the book will kind of be written on it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing left to write about it. There's nothing left to say or to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So things that are less logical and perhaps more intuitive would have a better chance at becoming the sort of enduring classic that this film has.
Yep, that's true. And after watching Mary Poppins and My Fair Lady, and I enjoyed them all as well. I actually really appreciate the Wizard of Oz, how it runs such a short time. It just runs in the sharp 90 minutes.
That it's true. The short runtime is
Oh,
appreciated.
101. Sorry,
Yeah.
but
But less than 2 hours, man. That's something neither of the other films can say, especially not My Fair Lady.
yeah, that's true. One last question I want to ask you, from the Wizard of Oz is what your favorite songs?
Favorite song? Well, I have Wikipedia pages for all three of these films pulled up already,
Yep.
so that I can easily refer to the song list. Because I don't have, I didn't take the notes that I should have, and I don't have the memory that I wish I had. But let's see. I think the song I like the best is the song that all three of Dorothy's friends perform, I guess, alterations of or alternate versions of,
Yeah.
which is If I Only Had a Blank. If I only had a brain, if I only had a heart, and if I only had the nerve.
Yeah.
And the reason I like those three so much is because three different characters perform those songs. They all have exactly the same melody, and only the words are changed. So with that commonality as a baseline, you really get to see how those three characters are unique and different from one another. They're singing the same thing, but the way that they sing it, the slight changes to the song, to their performances, really give you insight into how each of them are different from each other, and how all of them are the same
That's
in
right.
that they all really
Looking for
want
something.
something
Yep.
that they feel that they lack, and yet they already have.
Yeah.
So the fact that the song has the same melody for all three of those performances, it's a neat trick because it makes the characters feel distinct from one another, and yet it gives them one quality that they all share, which is, capitalized on as the film goes on.
And you feel like they are part of the team already as well.
Yeah, that's true. The fact that they're all singing the same thing, it just links them. It links them together in your mind. It makes them more of a unit. It makes their friendship seem stronger.
Yep.
What's your favorite song?
I would say I would go with the most obvious one.
Which is what?
Over the Rainbow.
Over the Rainbow, yeah.
Like when she start to sing it, like if you haven't watched the visual before, when she start to sing it, you then will realize that this is a musical. Because I do think that before that it's like the whole 10 minutes or so that it haven't been any musical performance at all. It's the first thing that she sing.
Right. I remember she kind of breaks into it almost out of nowhere.
Right. Yep.
She's just kind of talking to herself or talking to Toto. I guess Toto is still with her at that point in the film. Yep. And she's very casually talking, and then all of a sudden, bam, she starts singing. And it's not as though she leads into it in the way that characters in these other two films are transitioning between dialogue and song in a way that feels very clearly staged.
Yep.
And Over the Rainbow, it's kind of the film just is kind of like, okay, it's time for a song now.
Yeah, but then burst into song. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, she makes you believe.
Right.
It's Dorothy feeling like she has to run away from home after her dog. You can feel about that however you want, but Judy Garland makes you believe that Dorothy is real and that she feels joy and fear and homesickness, know. So when she sings Over the Rainbow, you're like, oh my God, I want to go there too.
Yep.
She must be singing about a real place. That's somewhere I'd like to go.
Right.
And thanks to this film, people can go there whenever they want.
Yep, agree. And it still remains my favorite one out of the three.
Really?
Yep.
I really did enjoy watching it, but I wouldn't say that this is. I wouldn't say this is my favorite. I love stuff that's made for kids. I have a lot of people don't want to watch things that are made for children. I have no problem doing that because I find children to be completely fascinating, and the things, the books and films that are made for them, if they're made well, I'm fascinated by those as well. But I don't think I could say that this is my favorite. It's very sweet and very imaginative, but it also seems maybe in short runtime, as as helpful as that is for like busy people who are trying to watch 3 films for a podcast. It could be that the short runtime is actually a mark against it in my mind.
Wow, right.
Because all we see is Munchkinland and Oz, and I have to imagine that there is so much more to this world, and we don't get that,
Yep.
Maybe I feel like something is missing. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really not for me to say, but the only thing I can say for sure is that it's not my favorite.
Right.
But it's great.
All right. You want me to get on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go with Mary Poppins.
Okay. Great. That's the next that I have on my Firefox tabs here, so I just have to click over.
Cool. This one was produced by Walt Disney himself, and this is like I would say to this day the only live action from Walt Disney Studio to be nominated for Oscar Best Picture.
Okay.
And it is. I think it easy to see why.
You mean why it was nominated?
Yeah. Why it's so popular?
Well, yeah. Oh, sure. It's a great film, and I'm sure that when it came out, well, I shouldn't say that I'm sure. I don't know this.
Yep.
But the effects are just,
Oh my
don't you
god.
think people's minds were probably just
It,
exploded and ran out of their ears when they saw
all right.
the characters in like the chalk world?
I tell you now, even today, I still blown away by that scenes.
Yeah.
They mix the live action and the animation so fluently that it's better than all the CG that we watch today.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you any like uncanny feeling at all. The character feel like they belong in the scene greatly. Like 90% of this time, and it just look gorgeous.
Yeah, it really does. And it helps that the film pays a lot of attention to like physical details that would be
Right.
necessary to indicate the
Yep.
like the cohesion between the characters and this make believe world. Like for
Yep.
example, when they first appear there, they dust the chalk off of themselves.
Yep.
They kind of
Yep.
brush the
Yep. Yep.
chalk off their shoulders, and the two
Yep.
little kids clean each other up by like patting at each other's outfits.
Right.
And then when, after they've been on the merry-go-round for a little while and the horses break away,
Yep.
as the horses, the poles are still moving up and down in the motion of a merry-go-round, but
Yep.
they're moving freely along the ground. And whenever the pole moves down, you see
The scratch.
a line, yes, a line
Yeah.
being made, like being drawn by the bottom of the pole in the dirt.
Yep.
So just those sorts of details, they go a long way,
Yeah. And even like the one that the guy singing with the penguins.
Right.
It looks so flawless. It actually that one scene blew me away. Like all the colors and the effect. And I don't think that they have like the green screen visual effect at the time.
Well,
Do
I
they?
wanted, I don't know, I don't really know anything about film production.
Yep.
I know how green screens work in the era of computers,
Right.
but I don't know how they would have worked back here. There are definitely
They
scenes where characters are standing in front of a projection. Like, for example, when the kids are snapping their fingers to clean up their room,
Yep.
as she's teaching them the spoonful of sugar song. And there are 100%, there are scenes where the little girl will snap her fingers and then all of her toys will like fly into their toy bin, or a bunch of stuff will the drawers will open and a bunch of clothes will hop into the
Yep.
drawer. You can see that
The
that's
stop motion. Is that what
I assume that it must have been achieved via stop motion, like
Yep.
what you're seeing in the background. But you see the little girl is standing in front of something, in front of a
Yep.
projection.
Right.
I imagine that it's a green screen, but I don't understand how green screens worked exactly
All right.
back then.
According to Wikipedia, which I read now, the effect that the guy singing together with the penguin were achieved by the sodium vapor process, which I have no idea. Like,
Well, I think that
But
what that means is that you film him, and
Yep.
then you have the animation of the penguins, and then you like combine the two strips of film and you put them in some sort of solution in order for them to become one. I know
Wow.
that like it's kind of like, I don't know exactly how to describe it.
Yep.
I'm talking about something completely different. That's
it like
combining live
this?
action with animation. I'm talking about like two different strips of live action film.
Right.
With a character. Well, no, not even that. It's a character standing in front of a screen or a projection somehow. I don't know.
Right. Yep.
I mean, all of this to say, basically, the strings are evident.
Yep.
Watching from our cushy chairs in the year 2022, but even then, the film is just so delightful that you can notice those things just idly, and then you just move on, and you wait to be enchanted by the next clever thing that happens. When people were watching this in the mid 60s for the first time and were seeing these effects, they were probably like, film will
Go away.
never ever look
Yeah.
better than this ever in history.
Yep. Well, yeah, I would say that today when we thinking back about how they could achieve that 60 years ago, it's still really really something very impressive.
Yeah, you have to admire how, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
resourceful people were.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, you have like the tea table floating. We have like people actually floating in that scene as well, and we see like the amount of animation in the animation sequences is also like through the roof as well.
Yeah.
Oh my god! It just the visual effect are really really good in this film.
Yeah, the floating scenes with what's his name? Uncle
Yep,
Uncle
Uncle Laugh.
Uncle Arthur? Uncle Andrew?
uh, Hold on,
Uncle Albert.
Albert. You're getting there. Yep.
Yeah, Uncle Albert.
Uh-huh.
I was really anything having to do with animation, I always scrutinize closely because I'm interested in how all that stuff works.
Yep.
And of course, the spoonful of sugar scene with the things putting themselves away into toy bins and chests of drawers and things. That's also animation. Stop motion, I assume, is how it was achieved. At least the background stuff. But the floating scene, that was just like pure practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how did they do that? It wasn't wires, was it? Must it have been wires? Is there another way how do they do that?
Yeah, yeah. I have no idea, but I think it's maybe wire or maybe it just manipulate the screen again. Like there's one screen that there are one layers that they're having a tea, and then they put on top of another layers where they are look like they're floating. I'm not really sure how they do it.
I don't either. I mean,
Yeah.
once they're all up in the air and they're having tea after Julie Andrews has kind of given up on maintaining any sort of order, and everyone's just laughing their head off. Then once everybody's up there, all you have to do is film at the table level so we don't see anything beneath it, and kind of like move the camera back and forth every once in a while to create the illusion that we're suspended in midair. You just kind of have to jostle the camera. But as for the scenes where there's a contrast between the characters who are floating due to laughter and the ones who are still on the ground,
Yep.
that's what kind of blew me away.
Yep.
I wonder how,
Well,
like, I know the Peter Pan, there was a live action Peter Pan, isn't there?
yeah. There are a few versions of it actually. The newest one is like a few years ago.
Oh, huh. I guess
The
that's
old
the
one is like from
Disney remake.
2003.
I don't know if there's a Peter Pan or any sort of film made around this time that has characters flying or floating or levitating, but I would
Right.
be interested in
Yeah.
comparing them. I guess that's why I brought it up.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool
Yep.
scene. I mean, it's amazing that they achieved it, but that scene may have been my least favorite of the whole film, or one of them. I just didn't understand like the relevance of the Uncle Albert character.
All right. Speaking about relevance, because I do feel like the whole film is like it's story wise it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's just functional, but and then I think it's actually very interesting the fact that Mary Poppins, the titular character, doesn't really pop in, like 20 minutes, half an hour into the movies.
Well, we see her during the credits
Oh,
at the very start of the film.
Right, disregarded credit, like when she's relevant to the story.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's, I guess 20 minutes sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because you have to get to know
the
other characters first, like the kids and...
Yeah, instead we see a lot of Bert, the guy who like play music, do all sort of things, and how is he relevant to the story again? He just
Well,
happened
he's
to be
Dick
nearby,
Van
right?
Dyke. That's how he's relevant. He's the man. I mean, Dick Van Dyke is in your movie. You just put him front and center and just let him dance his
do
way into audiences' hearts.
do his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't really know what he's growing there because he's not supposed to be Mary Poppins love interest, does he?
Well, there are some scenes like when they have dinner and the penguins are the wait
Yep,
staff.
yep,
Um, there's the slightest little bit of romantic tension between the two of them because she starts to sing or I can't remember what's sung and what's not at that point in the movie,
yep,
but she says something to the effect of, "Oh, a lady never has to fear whenever you're around. There's no risk of like untoward
yep.
advances."
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Which is the 1960s version of the friend zone, I guess. And you can see the expression on his face. He's not pleased. And so then the next song that he does when he's, the penguins are doing whatever penguin shit they're doing. I don't remember exactly, but he starts to sing a whole bunch of women's names.
Yep.
And the penguins get in on the act as though he's brought a whole bunch of women here
Yep,
to this place.
yep,
And they've eaten at this particular penguin restaurant before.
yep, yep.
And she then, hearing this, is kind of cross with him. Like
Mm,
she's not very happy about the fact that he's parading all this like list of women, like his whole little black book. He's brought them all to this chalk world.
yep.
So yes, there is like some sort of romantic tension between the two of them, but it hardly matters in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and how his relationship to the kids again because like we sort of see them together later on in the movies as he had to spend time looking after them, but I just don't feel his character is that relevant to the movie. That's my point is.
I understand that feeling, but I mean, I think that he's kind of just a counterpart to Mary Poppins.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like
yep,
I don't
yep,
know. I mean, maybe you
agree.
can write the film, maybe you can structure it so that Mary Poppins does everything that he does, and she is like the kids are completely reliant on her.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's not a
but
good idea either.
well, I'm sure it could be pulled off because Julie Andrews gives a hell of a performance
Yep,
um,
yep,
as Mary Poppins. She's loving but firm as she says
yep,
to David Tomlinson's character when she's you know
yep,
interviewing, I guess. Though she never performs references, as it seems a very antiquated and outdated thing to do.
yep.
Um, which I got a kick out of because I always hate giving references because that means I have to contact people
Yep.
and tell them to be ready for a call. Like people from a job that I've left and don't care about anymore, I have to be like, "Hey, can you vouch for me if they give you a call?"
Yep.
So I agree, completely outdated. Let's please not have references anymore.
Yep.
But you could write the film so that she's the one who like makes the chalk drawings.
Yep.
You could write the film so that she's the one who has the idea to go up the chimney, or perhaps the kids just get sucked up there by magic that's like out of her control and she has to chase them,
Yep.
rather than that whole chimney sweep sequence being a result of his occupation as a chimney sweep.
Yep.
I don't know. It's possible, but I don't know. Maybe the idea was that Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins is functioning as the children's mom in a sense, being their nanny.
In a
And
sense.
Bert, Dick Van Dyke's character, is kind of like their dad.
Yeah. All right. What I actually really like about Mary Poppins as a character and how she influenced to these two kids is that the fact that she become their nanny isn't to like to raise them or to make them perfect, but I think the ultimate message is just for them to enjoy themselves, enjoy,
Hmm.
like playing games and understand that the parents, especially the dad, uh, still love them, and also like cultivate the parent understand that uh the children are important to them as well. So I think that's a really good message.
Yeah, it's
And
true. She's not in it for herself, I
right,
guess.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and she doesn't, the children's perception of her is not the most important thing to her.
Mhm,
She
mhm.
just understands that they need looking after and they
Yeah,
need somebody to care for them.
yeah,
But when the wind changes, she'll leave.
that's
You
right.
know, and I think the wind changing um, is kind of, it happens at the same time that the father
Yeah,
goes through his like multiple phases in the film
right.
or undergoes his change of heart. The wind changes at first
Yeah,
because the father is like he's had it up to here and he's
mhm,
taking it on himself to find the nanny. So
yeah,
he's like getting a little bit more involved, but only as a means of distancing himself further from his children. The only
mhm,
reason he's taking on the responsibility is so that he can be sure that he gets a nanny who is going to keep his kids, you know, uh, in line,
mhm.
basically. So that's when the weather vane shifts for the first time. And then
Yep,
it shifts back after
yep,
he realizes how important his children are to him.
yep,
And at that point, she's no longer needed. And that's interesting that there's that her, she's got a rule about
right.
that, that
Mhm.
it's not, she can't love every single child that she is nanny to.
Yep,
But her walking stick, is written in, the walking stick knows what the audience knows,
yep,
which is that she does love those kids and she probably loves every set of kids, every child that she nannies.
yep,
And it's her duty not to let that interfere,
yep.
with her role in the universe. Basically, she's like a cosmic force
Mhm.
uh, to care for lonely and needy children and to reunite them with their families.
Yep. I think the three musical films that we watch this time, we can kind of know that they are, like they are shot on stage, because they like the town look really, like stage wise.
Hmm.
Uh, I do feel that the Wizard of Oz and even Mary Poppins use that into good effect too.
Yeah, I agree. I think My Fair Lady of the three, it feels the most staged.
Yep. Yep.
Even though the film setting is like it's the longest film, it has the most. Well, I guess you can't say that it has the most locations. That's not true, but it's set in the most like grounded.
Yep.
It's the most grounded of the three films in terms of its locations. And I
I
think the fact that
Yep.
it's so familiar to us, like it
That's
just
right.
takes place in London on Earth, that makes it that much more evident that it is staged.
Yep.
But yeah, Mary Poppins and The Wizard of Oz being more fanciful, and perhaps having, I don't know what you would call them, like better staging crew.
Yep.
They
Mm.
were able to blend everything a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, I think because we all know that this is like a sort of fantasy slash children's show. So the stage decoration work for its benefit. The
Hmm.
only thing that a bit stuck out for me though is the captain. Like they are on top of the one of the building, and they doing the shot fire or something. Like at 4 o'clock. I just don't get it. It's just so goofy for me.
I just think it's fun
All right.
because it sets up the scenes where Winifred Banks has to say, "Places,
Yep.
everyone," and they all get ready to catch the vases and
Yep.
straighten out the pictures by like banging on the wall, and
Yep.
um, that's just neat.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a purpose for every single character and every single happening in the film, it's a
Yep.
little difficult maybe to to explain
Yep.
why having the captain, pretend that the top of this building is a boat is so important.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if I could say.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it certainly, it has to do with like order, and Jane and Michael's dad is obsessed with everything being like in its right place and everything being in order.
Yep.
And perhaps the cannon fire always happening at a specific hour in the day is kind of echoes that, but it also makes it a little bit more fun. I don't know. Who's to say? I guess if you ask the author of what is Mary Poppins, I assume is also based on a book.
I would say so. I'm not sure though, actually.
Let's see.
Yeah, based on the book, Mary Poppins.
Yeah. P.L. Travers Scott. Oh yeah, P.L. Travers. I did see his name in the credits.
Yep.
Yeah, you would have to ask P.L. Travers or his surviving family or whomever. I'm just tickled by the idea that guy, he's like a retired sea captain who was so in love with his life, away from the land that he brought it back with him.
Yeah. All right. How do you feel about Dick Van Dyke accent? Is that
his accent?
Yeah.
Boy, when it comes to accents, My Fair Lady is so reliant on them that it just kind of wiped my perception of any other character's accents in any other film out of my head.
Right. Because I feel his accent is okay, like it's good to listen to. But then I just saw like his accent is widely regarded as the one that you shouldn't, like as one of the bad example of using an accent in the Hollywood movies.
It's interesting. I don't really care too much about his accent because he's a magical being.
Right.
You have to assume that he is, right? Because if he's bringing all these women into this chalk world, in order to have dates at the Penguin restaurant, then he must be magic. And if he's magic, who cares whether he's got an English accent or an American accent or whatever? He's magic.
Well, all right.
I wasn't bothered by his accent even one tiny bit. It never stuck out to me.
Right.
Maybe that's just because I'm American, though.
Yep.
So when I hear American people doing British accents, I think, yes, this person is clearly British.
Yep. All right. Oh God. I still can't pronounce that word.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Good job.
Yeah,
no, I can't do that.
I did see this film. I'm 99% sure in my music class, like I said when I was a kid, and this is the great thing actually about showing films to small children is that once kids get to be as early as like 8 or 9 years old, they learn to pick films apart. Like, oh, that looks fake, or oh, I know that's not real, or those special effects weren't very good. That's the new way of talking about it since we're living in current year. But for you show a small child Mary Poppins, and they don't care, or rather they can't really detect. They don't think about how the film was made. They just accept it. I just completely lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? How does that relate to what I was about to say at all?
I think you do mean that maybe kids try to learn that word.
Oh yeah,
pick up that word.
Yeah, I mean, where I was going with it originally was I was going to say, all the kids in my class, we just loved the film. The reason we loved it is because we were still so young and we hadn't, we weren't cynical about film yet. And even though Mary Poppins, at the time that I saw it, I'm in my 30s, my early 30s. So when I saw it in school, it was probably around the year 2000, a little before that maybe. So the film had been out for about 35 years, let's say. So it was already dated, but I didn't care, and neither did any of my classmates. We just thought it was awesome, and we thought the word supercalifragilistic. See, I'm having a little bit of hard time. I've lost the magic of childhood, I guess. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. We all thought that word was great, so we all, like tried to learn the word and sang the song to each other and like challenged each other.
Oh,
So yes,
jeez.
that whole long tangent I just went on was basically just to say I can say the word
Yeah.
with a 50% success rate.
Jeez. All right.
It's a
good
great
for
it's a
you.
great song.
It's a great song. Good for you that you can pronounce as well. I cannot do that.
I can sing the song too. Like I remembered it. I remembered every word as they were. Like even the hum diddly lum diddly hum diddly lum diddly. That whole part with the background animated characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I especially love there's like there's 4 or 5 background characters who are like playing the tambourine and doing whatever. And they each get a turn to sing a little line or to say a little something during the bridge. And one of the characters says, well, the gist of what he says is, oh, I mean, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. That word is mighty powerful. I mean, I said it to my girl one night, and now she's my wife. And then the woman next to him, obviously his wife is like looking at him like about to hit him, or I think she does hit him.
Yep. She does hit him.
And then he's like, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. That's charming.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of little things in this movie that for adults to enjoy, even though it is a children's film. I think by and large, there's little bits like that adults will pick up on. Yeah. And in The Wizard of Oz too, there are some moments, like for example, The Wizard of Oz being unable to say the word philanthropist, and instead he just settles on like do good deed doer. Or something along those lines. Like that would be just something that adults would get a little giggle at.
I actually think that's the best kind of children's films. It's the one that children can enjoy and adults have something to pick up as well.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, because children can't go to the movie theater and see films themselves. Someone's got to take them. Yeah, so if the film can entertain the whole audience, that's great. But even setting aside whether it can please kids and adults simultaneously, one nice thing about that, having that dual appeal is that just the children in isolation, they can appreciate it. And then when they themselves, 20 years later, 30 years later, 50 years later, see the film again at a different stage in their life, they can find new things to appreciate about it.
That's right. That's right. I would say that a lot of kids, like growing up, watching it now as an adult, would appreciate like how to find the feeling, for example, and maybe relate more to the mother meet banks who work in the bank.
Well, she doesn't work in a bank. He does.
Meet the banks, yeah.
She's on the front lines for women's suffrage.
That's right.
Which I noticed that must have been going on around this time in England, because not only this film but also My Fair Lady, there is a scene where women are marching for suffrage.
Oh,
it's
right.
One of the scenes with Eliza's father walking around town. I think it's the one with a little bit of luck, which is just his character. The way his character is treated by the film is so interesting to me.
Right. All right, we can get to My Fair Lady now.
Oh, should we? I mean, is there more to say about Mary Poppins? There probably is.
If you have something more to say, you are more than welcome to
well, I mean, you're right. We need to keep it moving and everything. But I would say this is my favorite of the 3 films. Mary Poppins is.
Yeah, agreed.
It has the loosest story, but I think it has the most lovable characters. And it's certainly like the most, wow, how did they do that? Or, wow, that was incredible. It has the most of those moments.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't mind that it's like a little bit structurally weak, because it just moves from really amazing scene to amazing scene.
Yeah. one thing that I'm glad that I we didn't pick the sound music for this one, because I just see the many similarity between Mary Poppins and the sound music, and Mary Poppins is much better than the latter one.
Sound of Music is another film that I saw in my elementary music class.
All right, yeah, because it's that the same actress, Julie
Mm-hmm.
Andrews, and she basically become a wife, but she may babysitting like 6, 7 other children. So
Yeah.
basically the same plot
Kind
as
of.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Except she's not
but
magical.
yeah,
And that's boring.
right. Yeah, and it is set in like the World War II, so we get like the whole war plot going on in the latter half as well.
Right.
Which I mean, like, like I just think that when it comes to musical films, we ought not to think about the plot too much, but to the music, musical sequences.
Well, speaking of My Fair Lady, that's a film whose writers may have something to say about that
Yeah,
point of view.
right,
They may
right.
not agree, because this is certainly, at nearly 3 hours,
Yeah,
this is certainly the most plot heavy
yeah,
film.
yeah. That's true. That's true. Um, I would say the main reason that I picked My Fair Lady is one of them is because the competition between My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins. They are in the same year. They like they still actors from each others, and they be being compared for like most of the time, because they basically from the same times, and one and from the same setting as well. It from London, I think. The setting are from London. The other reason why I we pick My Fair Lady is I want to see Audrey Hepburn to like act against style. So how do you feel about this performance first and foremost?
About Hepburn's performance?
Yep, yep.
Um, I don't know.
Is it
It's
enjoyable?
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's a little hammy.
Happy.
That was my first impression
Yep,
when listening to her do her Cockney accent
yep,
at the
yep.
very beginning of the film. I was like, I'm not sure about this. Like, I don't know how this is gonna go. um, but then she undergoes her whole transformation.
Yep,
It's not as simple as that, because she has to suffer first,
yep, yep,
and in
yep,
fact, Henry Higgins is probably determined that she'll suffer, because
yep.
he is like a first class snob,
Yeah,
and I
that's true.
doubt that he thinks in his mind that this should be easy for her. Like he
Yep,
probably wants to make it tough on her, because he's twisted.
yep, yep,
Um,
yep.
but so yeah, it's not as easy as her just going through her transformation. But watching that whole process is pretty rewarding, I think,
Yep,
because she like comes up in the world so much,
yep.
and it's not easy for her, but she manages it.
Yeah.
And
I
then as soon as you see that accomplishment doesn't satisfy her, I think that's when the performance like hits the next level
Yep,
for me.
yep,
When you realize that like this film is not finished, the story is not finished, this character is not finished,
yep.
and her portrayal of the character is certainly not finished.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I think that's probably when I was convinced. So it took a little bit of convincing for me.
Yep, yep. I would say that I enjoy her acting, like in the first segment at the pool, like flower girls, because it just so out of her character to do that. It's fun to watch. It's fun to see her, like doing with the accent and all that. Um, as for convincing, I would say like Audrey Hepburn is the type of actress who like really nailed the lady part. As for the really poor part, I just like I just kind of don't see her in that at all.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean, she's probably played so many like elegant women
Yep.
In film. That's just what she shows up on screen not wearing diamonds, and you're like, "Where's your necklace?"
Yeah.
You can't be selling flowers out here.
Yeah.
So it feels as though she's putting on a character in the first half of the film when her character in the film is putting on a character in the second half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
she's playing. It feels like Audrey Hepburn is playing pretend in the first half of the film, whereas Eliza Doolittle is playing pretend in the second half of the film.
Yep.
So just based on our like understanding of who Audrey Hepburn is, the role she's played, maybe there is a little bit of disconnect there. But I mean, on the other hand, that could just be part of the way that Hepburn, was like marketed and our perception of her.
Yeah.
I certainly felt that way. I just thought she had a silly accent, and when she was doing the whole kind of screaming like whenever someone would say something offensive to her. And I've heard that in other, I don't know if it's right to say films, but I've certainly, maybe television shows, but I've heard that that sort of utterance being used like in English stories around this time period, because this is like the early 20th century.
Yep.
This is pre-World War I even.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Wait
a second.
It's not, isn't it? It's around the strike that you said, the
suffrage.
Yeah, suffrage.
Yeah, but wait a second. Now I'm thinking there was a definite reference in this film to it taking place in like the year 1910 or something, wasn't there?
I can't recall that on top of my head, but I would say it should be happened around that time.
Well, the stage play that it's based on was written in 1913, and I thought for sure that I detected somewhere in the film that it was happening in like the early 20th century. But I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. Or maybe Mary Poppins was based on a book that was written around the same time period, and that's why the suffrage movement was happening in both films simultaneously.
Maybe.
P.L. Travers, Mary Poppins books, published over the period 1934 to 1988. Okay, I don't know what's going on at this point.
That's why.
Yeah. Anyway, it happened in England.
Yep.
In Edwardian England.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's a good. In the end, it turns out to be a great performance. I just think it takes some time getting there.
I agree with you that the structure is very interesting, because we would think that the end game is for Eliza to become a lady, and like that's the end of it. But we have like a good last hours, so like 45 minutes, an hour to her actually become a success, and then her linking back to her upbringing, and assess her love with Henry Higgins.
Right, and it's an interesting love that the two characters share. Not at all traditional.
It is, yeah.
What do you think about their relationship just in general? I know it's a big question because it's a big film and both of them are at the center of it. But what are your thoughts?
The way that Henry Higgins' treatment of her at the beginning is just outrageous, but I think it intensely shows, so that we can see like how this how the chemistry change over time, and and how they grow fun to each others.
Right.
I feel that they both have a good chemistry to each other, as of they are like they are good for each other. I'm not too sure.
Well, it's interesting that you would say how their chemistry changes over the course of the film.
Yep.
Because I don't know how much it really does change.
Mm-hmm.
The resolution of the film is that the two of them, he puts on the phonograph of her having come to the house in the first place, and he's like reminiscing nostalgically about that early point in their relationship. And she returns and quotes the next line, as though they're going back to when they first met. It's not as though they like want to move forward with some great declaration of love that would change things between them. They want what's comfortable. They want each other just the way that they are. I'm not convinced that there is a whole lot of change that happens with either of these characters. Like, I mean, obviously, Eliza Doolittle changes superficially quite a bit. Her accent, her entire, manner of being. She probably gets an education as well, so she can talk about whatever things apart from the weather and everyone's health. And that's one of my favorite moments in the entire film is when Higgins' mother throws that line back in his face, because that's what she's instructed. She's instructed only to talk about the weather and everyone's health when he first takes her to the horse race. And then, later, after he's come to his mother's house and he's discovered Eliza there, and his mom is like, advocating for her and allying herself with Eliza rather than her own son. And he says, "Oh, and Henry, you should probably only talk about the weather and everyone's health." It's just such a great, like, fuck you moment, which he definitely deserves. I lost my train of thought again. Like, I just don't think that in general his character changes very much. He's not the sort of character who's willing to compromise.
Right. But
and ultimately neither is she, even though she undergoes so much superficial change.
But
she's still the same person, I think.
Yeah, but now that he have like a upgrade image of hers, like she changed her status and he become all the better for that. Will he change? Because he actually, like, at first he see her as like, like nothing, or not like just dust.
Yeah, he says on the phonograph at the very end, and obviously earlier in the film when the recording was taken, he says she's so deliciously low. She's dirty, and he's like a disgusting character, because he like basically gets off on the idea that he's picked up this poor, helpless, ignorant woman, and he's going to change her. I mean, think about the scene where he congratulates himself and everyone else congratulates him. You did it. You did it. There's a whole musical about how he did it and how he changed her and how he pulled the wool over everyone's eyes at this ball where they met, like, the Queen of Transylvania. He doesn't think of her at all in that scene. Like, none of the success belongs to her in his mind. It's despicable the way that he thinks of her, or rather doesn't think of her, and the way that he treats her as like the means to an end, just a part of his little game that he's playing for his own amusement. But she loves him, for whatever reason.
Maybe just like Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome. Well, I have a theory that there's an element of Stockholm syndrome in every single relationship.
Really?
Yeah, right. I think that two people get so accustomed to one another that they feel subconsciously like they're held hostage by the other person, and that if they were to leave, like, it wouldn't be as comfortable or it wouldn't be as safe. Yeah, I think.
But there isn't any victim out of that, right?
Don't you think that people who are in? Well, I mean, you've just entered into, like, taken the next step in your relationship with your current partner. Yep. So, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think that in every relationship, people victimize each other in very small ways every single day. You can't have a perfect relationship where you think mainly about the other person, or you can't perfectly balance your own needs with another person's needs. So in any given day in your relationship, someone is winning and someone is losing. That is to say, either you are putting that person before yourself, so you are quote unquote losing, and if you're in love with someone, that may be something that you're perfectly happy to do.
Yeah. It's
But
I
someone's still like losing, you know what I mean, in
I
quotation marks.
I think I know what you mean, and I hope she do not listen to the podcast. I
Well,
think
I
it's
assume that she doesn't listen to any of them.
you know, I think it's just a process of like compromises. Like you lose something, you win something else, and then it's not like lose at ends. Like win or lose. It's just like you give up on like uh on something to get something back. Yeah, it just
Well, even just saying give up on something, then you're losing something.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I haven't been in a relationship for a long time, but I can remember the feeling of being in love with somebody,
Yeah.
and it's like it's the greatest thing in your life. And of course, there are many things, most things, sometimes everything that you'd be willing to give up, to continue feeling that feeling and for the other person to feel it as well. But this film is very frank about, like, I don't know, the whole idea of love and of the differences between the sexes. It's very dated in that way.
Yep.
And I don't hold that against it, because I think the film makes a lot of interesting observations. Like the characters are very flawed, and it's not as though they're reasoning when they're doing it. For all that Henry Higgins prides himself on, like, men being so logical and reasonable and just being chums with each other and just being one of the guys and stuff, when he complains about women not being more like men or himself or whatever, I think that comes from an emotional place. It comes from a place of frustration with the course of his relationship with Eliza, whom he loves in a very weird way.
Yeah. It's like his possession, right?
Kind of. But I
Yeah.
think there's a very critical moment later on in the film when she, when he comes to his mother's house and she, like, is kind of giving as good as she gets,
Yep.
Now that he's taught her so much, she's able to have a conversation with him as equals. And there's a moment where he says to her, "I like you this way." He kind of, like, appraises her as having become somebody who's worthy of his like,
Attention.
attention and respect and appreciation and love, even though he would probably not use that word. Now it's really condescending the way that he says it, but nonetheless, I think he appreciates her most in that moment out of all the moments in the film, and it's because she's able to kind of go toe to toe with him, and that's, I think, what he was looking for. And she wasn't able to give that to him when when she was just a common flower girl. At least that would be his way of thinking about it. It's just it's really the relationship between the two characters. It gives you a lot to think about.
Yeah. And I still don't think that they are good for each other. So the ending where like, they sort of like we sort of have a happy ending doesn't really sit well to me this time.
Well, is it really a happy ending? I mean, Hollywood is criticized for shoehorning happy endings into everything.
Yeah.
But and in this film, I mean, the two characters, the male lead and the female lead are reunited. And there's an understanding on the audience's part that they are going to stay together going forward. In what capacity, we don't know that for sure exactly.
Yeah.
Because she says, I loved you. I didn't want you to make love to me, but I loved you nonetheless. So it's not like they're gonna run off and get married like her dad did. You know, they're not going to have to get him to the church on time. But despite the fact that they are going to stay together in some capacity, I don't know that it's the happiest ending. Like, I certainly didn't feel as though the ending was particularly happy. Just because I don't think much of Henry Higgins, like, as a man or as a person, as I should say, as a person.
Mm.
And I don't know how happy she's going to be with him in the long term, but she does grow to love him and he to love her.
Yep. Yep.
So in that sense, it's a happy ending, but it's, you know, it's not as though the film creates like a really idealized depiction of their future love, like what the future has in store for them. It doesn't spell any of that out. It just puts them together because they want to be together. Mm. And part of that desire is selfish, and part of it is like their fascination with each other, and part of it is that they don't want to be alone, and they're probably desperate not to be alone, and so they need and want each other's company. Like, I don't feel as though the film sugarcoats things too much just by creating that final scene.
Mm-hmm. I do feel that though that the musical performance before that, where he, you know, have a monologue of, you know, like he getting accustomed to her.
Yeah, her face, right?
Her face.
I miss
yeah,
her face. Well, I mean,
overlooked.
who wouldn't miss her face? Let's be real, fellas.
That's right. But yeah, I just feel that just went on forever. It's just too long.
You think so?
I think so.
I think it's completely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was completely necessary for the film. I mean, who's to say whether it was too long or too short? I mean, maybe it was too long. I didn't feel that way just because I felt it was so crucial to see his character made vulnerable.
Yep.
Because at no other point in this entire film could he sing a song like that.
Yep.
Or I should be really saying, you know, putting sing in quotation marks, because he does very little actual singing, which I feel is a strike against this movie a little bit.
Yep.
Because whoever is doing Audrey Hepburn singing for her, whoever's overdubbed onto her singing, is just crushing it. Like, every note just,
yep.
Like, you know, it kind of makes your pulse quicken a little bit. Just the sheer mastery of it, and the pure emotionality of all of her scenes, man. Like, holy crap.
Yep.
But he's just kind of like, well, my name is Henry Higgins, and I am here to say that instead of singing, I am going to talk in this here way. It's going to be very regimented and play with the, like...
Yep.
I need more. I need more from you, man.
Yep. Yep.
But sing. Yeah, he does. He sings that final song. It just demonstrates that something. I was talking earlier about whether, like, how much he's changed, whether he's changed at all. At the very least, he couldn't have made himself vulnerable in that way. Just admitting even to himself that he misses her. He couldn't have done that at any other point.
Yep.
So it's not as though he's made like a particular amount of progress. It's just that he's gotten accustomed to, to a woman, who he's grown to love, you know, and he sometimes it really just do be like that. Like, you can't, you fall in love with somebody and that's just the way you feel about him. You can't change that.
All right. One other question is how do you take on the horse race scenes?
I have to say, dude, the very first scene after it returns from the intermission, and it's all the people, I don't know what you would call that, like the viewing area, I guess. All the people in their costumes, all in those fabulous poses.
Yeah.
That scene was incredible. Those scenes were amazing.
Wow, the costume is really nice. I think they have like on the zebra stripe, just black and white.
Yeah.
White. It looked great.
It felt very modern to me. Like the costuming and the blocking, the choreography, the poses. It felt like something that could be produced now. I mean, obviously, if it were produced now, it would need to be with an eye for the past,
Yeah.
because of the fashion and especially the singing, which is, you know, songs like these are not written anymore for any purpose anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was struck by those scenes for sure. I mean, those scenes are also where it's some of the most obvious staging, because
Yeah.
like when she walks in and she's kind of walking through one of the like the miniature halls, with the white columns everywhere. It is so completely it's so completely obvious that they're on a stage, because like there's no sky.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just
Yeah.
white. The background is just white. It's just a wall. So that
And
I mean, it kind of works because the whole thing is black and white, but
yeah.
it's noticeable.
Yeah, even like the way that they look at the horse race is obviously staged.
Yeah,
And
because they all put their glasses up and they're supposed to try to follow the horses, but they like their heads are moving at different speeds. You know, they're not really all looking at the same thing.
yeah, and and I actually feel that like while structure wise, I think it important as well, because it's like the first trial for Eliza to see if she actually fitted to act as a lady. But I feel like that setting is much more preferable than the setting at the beginning where we see Eliza, selling flowers, because it looked more staged. I don't know if you get what I mean, but
What does? Which one of the two? I mean, I think those two moments in the film are the ones that are most obviously like on a lot somewhere.
all right. I mean that the setting where it all staged, it actually worked for its favor more than like the one that look like a real place, because it doesn't look real.
You mean at the very beginning of the film, it doesn't look real?
It doesn't look as real. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And the way that everyone's voice echoes as well.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I understand that they're near a cathedral or something, right? Because he makes a reference to her like, you can go find some other place of worship if you don't want to be here listening to me talk to you this way.
Yep.
So they must be, near a cathedral, but the way everyone that would cause people's voices to echo. But even after that, when she, goes to get more flowers to sell, and it's like the streets of London basically. And there's that first musical number. I think it's the first, maybe it's the second, where she talks about wanting to have warm hands, warm head, warm feet, something like that, and talking about eating chocolate. What's the name of that song? Wouldn't It Be Lovely? Oh, right. Wouldn't it be lovely? Yeah, that's the second, because the first musical number is Why Can't the English Learn to Speak?
Yep.
And I got to tell you, like, I was, before I ended up in education, I was an English major, and I took a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's pretty embarrassing when a former English major can't think of a word. Like grammar classes. What's the word for when you take a...
All right, literature? It's not literature.
It's like phonetics, but...
Yeah, all right.
Why can't I think of this word right now?
It's like phonetic.
Yeah, it's like phonetics.
All right.
I took classes about phonetics, and I learned like the symbols that he writes down to indicate like different phonemes, like individual portions of speech.
Yep.
They're even smaller than syllables, because syllables can have like 2 sounds in them or multiple sounds. So phonemes break that down even further to just individual sounds. And I learned a bunch of those symbols and like how to combine them and how to use them. When you look up something in the dictionary and you see all those little symbols that indicate how something is pronounced, and you have to know what all of them mean in order to figure out the pronunciation. Like I took classes where I learned how to do that and how to like diagram sentences and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the reason I'm telling this very self-involved story is that his character, Henry Higgins' character in this film, will make you feel ashamed for knowing this stuff, because it just makes you look like a pompous douche. So it doesn't
All
feel
right.
good to watch his character be
I
such a huge snob.
I understand what he what he wrote. I mean like it's a for phonetic things. I understand that for that this one phonetic. I just cannot read it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I could read, like, I recognize many of the symbols, but some of them, I mean, it's entirely possible. This film was, how long ago now? 55 years? Almost 60?
60
Yeah.
years ago.
So it's possible that some, like, methods of recording phonetic speech have changed
Yep.
over the years, because academics are nothing if not restless. They always have to be coming up with some new shit that everyone has to learn. And that's kind of what his character is like. Like, he, you know, even Eliza's father, he, like, forces some middle class fate onto him
Yep.
as a prank,
Yep.
basically. And you know, Eliza's dad resents him for that,
Yep.
because
Yep.
now
Yep.
he's got to marry this woman and be. I mean, I made reference earlier to the fact that the way the film treats his character is really interesting. Because
Yep.
it condemns the intellectual, the self-absorbed intellectual who uses people only for his own amusement and for his own ends.
Right.
And the character who is, like, morally bankrupt is almost the hero.
Mm.
The guy who says, with a little bit of luck,
Yep.
with a
Yep.
little bit of luck, you won't have to be like a faithful husband or a sober individual or even a decent man. With a little bit of luck, you can avoid that fate.
Yep.
It's just so interesting that he's the hero, if not of the film, then certainly of every scene that he is in.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's, you know, he's not a good person, in quotation marks.
Yep.
He's drunk all the time. He borrows money from his poor daughter, literally poor,
Yep. And
just so he can go back to the bar and then drink until he gets thrown out again.
and he take
know.
advantage of the fact that you know, like she had been you know, like staying in his house in that guy's house.
Right.
He took advantage of that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like, even when Higgins says, "What about 10 pounds? Like, certainly this performance that you've put on here is worth 10 pounds. Can I convince you to take double?" He says,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like, he's got principles.
Yeah.
He only wants as much as he needs to go and get drunk and have a good time.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, he actually has no desire for,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yep. It is that.
Because,
Interesting.
like, Higgins has it all, you know, he's living in this house and he takes on the project of, you know, pulling the wool over everybody's eyes with Eliza as his subject. What is he doing in the meantime? We never see him work on anything except for her after a certain point in the movie. He's just rich as hell.
Yep.
And he has associates, acquaintances who are similarly rich. You know, like Pickering. So he has everything, and Eliza's dad has nothing. But Eliza's dad is probably more content with his station in life.
Whew, that's right.
I think there's a lot of, you know, the film's making a lot of observations about, I don't know, like, ultimately maybe just about what it means to be like content or fulfilled or happy.
And maybe the class different as well.
Yeah, that definitely plays into it. You know, because the two central characters are from different worlds.
Yeah.
Certainly Eliza's father, like, is emblematic of the quote unquote lower class. Yet he is the most joyous character in the movie.
Mhm.
And you know, Eliza is made more miserable by her ascension into high society because she doesn't have, you know, recognition. She isn't recognized for her achievement. Everybody who adores her thinks that she has always been this way. And the only person who understands how hard she struggled doesn't value her struggle.
Mhm.
So she is now that I think about it that way, the fact that she was so miserable and like so spiteful towards Henry makes that much more sense. He was the only person, apart from the other people who lived in his home, like Pickering and Mrs. Higgins and stuff. He's the only person who could have given her the gratification and the recognition that she craved, but he didn't do it.
Yep.
So does it make sense that they end up together? I mean, who can say? Like, is it right? Who can say?
Yeah.
But they end up, over the course of the film, they end up, not learning to love each other, but they just end up falling in a sort of love, and they can't really live without each other's faces. And so, happily enough, or perhaps unhappily, they end up together.
Yeah, I would say that out of the three, my favorite certainly have like the most to say. About its stories. It's the longest, so it's certainly over long. I feel like it's like half an hour long, too long. And I would say that I still enjoy Mary Poppins and the Wizard of Oz more, just based on like the entertainment values.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I don't know how I'd rank them really, or which one I find the most entertaining or whatever. I think I probably like Mary Poppins the best, but I enjoyed watching all three films. I mean, they're great films, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yep. Cool. Alrighty. So, what next for our podcast?
I don't think we know yet. What three films we're going to talk about next? I know it'll be 3 weeks from now.
Yep. Is it more films, or is it anime?
Oh well, we're always talking about anime on the other channel, Double Cross Anime. Yep. But the next time we do a podcast, it'll be 3 films over here on Triple Cross Cinema, and then we'll be starting the Akira, or I should say Akira manga.
Cool.
So if you're listening to this right now, you'll be hearing, on the day that it's uploaded, you'll be hearing from us again in 3 weeks. And I don't know what the theme of the episode will be, but we have done Hollywood 2 weeks in a row, so perhaps it's time for a journey to another corner of the world.
Yep. I'm thinking of other stuff as well, so we might try to do that.
Yeah. We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, we talk about that later on. Alrighty. So, good for now. We see you in 3 weeks' times.
Thanks for listening.